Welcome to the Outlander Unhinged podcast, where we talk deep dives, wild theories, and the heart of Outlander. I'm Doreen.
And I'm Jenny.
Welcome back to episode 10 of the Outlander Unhinged podcast. This week we are going to be discussing book 9, and since Liz and Katie are not there on their reading journey yet, they're going to be sitting this one out. But don't worry, they'll be back next week for another exciting episode. So, Jenny, do you want to introduce today's topic?
Today's topic is Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone, or Resurrected.
Big question mark. I gotta be honest with you, we were talking about this before we started recording, but this episode has us stressing out because there is just so much to cover in so little time. And for whatever reason, myself personally, I just go off on these tangents every time we start recording. And then I go back and listen to the episodes and I'm just cringing at myself. Stop ranting, keep it together. We were just talking about that. And before I start getting into it, this is so funny. We're covering book 9 and we're talking about how we think Jamie has been resurrected. And I had held up my book, and now that we have video, you guys can see it. And I said to Jenny, I have my book ready. I have everything tabbed. And she holds up her book and she's,
Yep, nice and plain. Like, I have one random note written. Like, there we go. I got one highlight. That's about it.
it just highlights. And I think it's interesting because the way that both of us are coming with our information for this topic comes from such different places.
And
I think that when Jenny held up her book and we saw how different we tabbed our books, it was another example of how we come at things so differently, but somehow, like you're the one who said this. We come at things differently, but
ends up in the same place. Like, it's crazy. Like, I think you look at it from a scientific way. And the funny thing is, in my family, I'm pretty level-headed when it comes to, I don't know, the seriousness of health and stuff like that, because I look at that in a scientific way. Like, this is what the doctor says, this is what you have to do, just due to my background as a medic. But when it comes to the book, I look at it through the lens of Catholicism. But yours is completely the other end in science. And I wonder, the two of them can work side by side. So that's really what I find interesting, that we're applying it to this. I don't want to call it a random book, but to this random book, we are able to bring these two different trains of thought into the same point. So,
I mean, it's interesting because if you look at Diana like that, she is kind of those two people because she's a scientist, but she's self-proclaimed a cradle Catholic.
Right.
And we talk about this a lot, about how those influences are bound to bleed over into the story that you're telling.
And I've said this before, I didn't understand it until this very book, when I was writing something out for an episode, when an author pours so much of themselves into a book. I'm not a writer, so I don't get that. And then when you see all of these themes of both science and religion, that's her pouring herself into the book. So, yeah, I love when things start to connect like that and it makes sense.
Me too. Before I get into I think we said it's a 5-page rant. I want to just tell you something so funny. So for all of our listeners, as you guys know, I recently won an auction and I'm going to be interviewing Diana Gabaldon.
This is amazing.
And I was talking to my husband and I said, can I just tell you the questions that I have? Now, first, a little bit of backstory. My husband is a very, very renowned architect. He's very successful, travels all over the country, does a lot of public speaking. But in a complete opposite spectrum, he also races motorcycles. So it's hilarious. Everybody always talks about how, like, there's business Chris and then fun Chris. So I said to him, you were actually the inspiration of how I wanted to go about the interview, because I wanted to come at it from a scientific point of view, because she's a scientist first. And if I was interviewing you, I would try to come at it from an architectural point of view, like, how do you apply it to your racing? And he's like, okay, well, give me an example. So I give him an example, which we're going to talk about in this episode. He goes, oh, no. I don't think you should do that. She's going to think that you think you're smarter than her. And now And you shouldn't try to pretend like you understand science if you're not a scientist. So now I'm thinking to myself, my whole interview has just gone out the
The
window.
window. Oh
So
no. Oh
after
my
this
God.
episode, if you guys on our social media should comment if you think we should bring these topics to Diana or if we're going to sound know-it-all-y, that would be a huge help.
I don't, I personally don't think. I feel like these are really good questions. Are we on the right path? Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine her thinking you're being over the top. I can't imagine that. Like these
Well,
are
he
such good topics.
yeah, and he did say that. He goes, I love it. I think it's important the way you approach it. Like maybe start out by saying, I'm not a scientist and I don't want to like be
Come off
kind
that
of
way. Yeah.
come off that way that I think I know everything, but I did this research and I couldn't help but see these connections. And is that what you intended? And he's like, yeah, that's the good way to do it. So,
We'll get there eventually. You will have a list of questions, and I think everyone is so excited for you. And we really want to see the video. I'm fingers crossed
I
that you'll be
know.
able to like record it yourself. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I
Totally
know.
excited.
All right, I'm going to start my rant. You guys, listen, I'm not kidding. I have pages of notes and I'm going to try to read them so I can stay on task so that I'm not all over the place. So, buckle in, get ready. So, okay, go tell the bees that I am gone or resurrected. Let's dive in. Starting at the beginning, I guess the best place to start is with prophecy. Because in Outlander, prophecies hold all the secrets. We talk about this all the time. Back when Jamie was just a little young whippersnapper in France, he was told his fortune by a seer. That vision became what we refer to as the 9 Lives prophecy. We call it this because the seer told Jamie that, like a cat, he would have 9 lives. Now, for our listeners, we've gone back and forth, Jenny and I, so many times trying to determine which instances would count towards Jamie's 9 lives. But whichever instances we've analyzed and compared, there was always one common denominator. And that was no matter how you looked at it, by the time we arrive at book 9, Jamie has cheated death or been healed or saved a total of 8 times. We'll circle back to this if we have time, what the 9 times are, but for the purposes of this, let's just stay on track. The most important facet of those healings is that Jamie's life was saved by intervention of another person. But most importantly, most of them are centered around Claire. Whether it is her physically healing him using her blue light healing power, or her time travel or presence preventing his death in other ways, meaning the timeline was skewed so that he could be saved.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about this in another episode recently, but all the way back in book 2, we see Master Raymond's healing Claire after baby Faith, and he uses his blue light healing power. But due to the extent of Claire's infection, was it her placenta? Is that what that
Yeah.
was?
So part of the placenta did not remove during delivery from the uterine wall. So it leaves a piece of it in there and it just
Mm-hmm.
festers and causes what is sepsis, which is just like an infection throughout the entire body. So it gets in your bloodstream and it can be absolutely deadly. They called it puerperal fever back then. I don't
Oh,
know what the today term is, but yeah, you can absolutely die from an infection from that.
okay. See, I never
And
really got that
you
much
can,
into it because, again, the medical portion is not my specialty.
I'm not an OBGYN by any means, but yeah, those are always the little things that I zero in on. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it absolutely could have killed her.
Okay. So while he's trying to heal her, he doesn't have enough power because she's so far gone. She's like on the brink of death. And he tries to tap into her power so that he can use it as sort of an amplifier. But because she's so near death, there's not much for him to use. So he tells her in that moment, call to the red man. And listen, this is one of the most significant moments in the story because we've learned 2 things in this chapter with Raymond. One, that his aura and that of other time travelers is blue. And 2, that Jamie's is red, like a Viking or a warrior. Remember that. I'm coming back to that. Like a Viking or a warrior. Okay? I also think in these chapters, we're seeing Master Raymond activate Claire's blue light healing power. And that this is the first instance when Claire taps into Jamie's power that they become joined particles in something that is called quantum entanglement. We're going to circle back to that too. Jenny knows we go off on tangents here, people. That's just what we do. So fast forward, we're at book 9. Go tell the bees that I am gone. Claire has healed Jamie however many times using her blue light and her body, even before she realizes that she's doing it. Like, she was healing him using her body and her blue light without even knowing it. It's really in book 9 that we first see her recognizing and seeing the blue light and saying, blue is beautiful, blue is healing, and she's seeing it coming from her hands when she's healing Cloud Tree. Like, we start seeing her really recognize it in this book, okay? And then all of a sudden, in this book, Jamie tells Claire that Mandy is able to see his aura. And that she doesn't see it as red, she sees it as the color of water. I was like, okay, where did that come from? Now, obviously, this immediately stood out to me because, first of all, how and why has his aura changed? And what does it mean that it is water? So, threw me for a freaking loop. I think, and Jenny, we talk about this all the time. This is what Diana does. She writes these over just
exaggerated. Yep.
Yes. And then right in there she drops this little thing like, "Oh, Mandy saw my aura. She said it's water. By the way, Claire, do you want to go over here and see the bees?" It's like it's hidden in there, and if you don't dissect it, you miss it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's her writing style. Like, you have she's testing us to make sure we're paying attention.
Yeah, and it's right in there. The first time I noticed it was the scene where William is recalling he got lost on a picnic with the family back in England, and he thinks he hears his mother calling to him around. I think it was there a stone circle there as well?
It was just stones.
Okay, so he thinks he hears his mother calling, and within that same chapter, he talks about losing his virginity for the first time. Lord John Grey brings him and his cousin to a brothel. That stuck out to me, but this whole little thing about him thinking he hears his mother calling him never stuck out to me. So it's the way she writes, it drives me crazy in a way that I have to super focus on what I'm reading.
See, I thought you were talking about the scene where he was in the woods and he was delusional and he thought the rocks were talking to him.
That's where he recalls it. Yes, he's in the dismal swamp, and you're so focused on, oh my God, is William going to die? Is he going to? What's going to happen here? And that's we totally missed this little snippet.
Yep. Same thing with finding out in book 9, they're all of a sudden talking and they're just in this random conversation, and then all of a sudden Bree's like, "Yeah, Mandy guided us through the stones." You're like, "What?
What?" Yeah. Like, by the way,
this happened.
Yeah, crazy.
All right, so see, we go off on tangents.
Went right off.
All right, so after I caught this, I discovered Jamie's aura was changed. I naturally, as one does, right? I made researching water my whole personality. And here's what I learned. The obvious, yes, water's clear. It often presents blue, blah, 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 blah. But the thing that really stood out is how and why it appears blue. The scientific reason, we know I love a scientific reason, is because the water color is determined based on light absorption. Key word being absorption. Remember that word.
Mm-hmm.
Think of sunlight. That contains all colors. You've got red, blue, yellow, orange. It enters water. So it's hitting the water. The sun rays are coming down, okay? The waves, the wavelengths is what they call them. You've got the red, the orange, the yellow. And for whatever reason, the scientists don't know why, but for whatever reason, red, yellows, oranges, they're absorbed more by the water. and it leaves the shorter blue wavelengths, because they're shorter, to be transmitted and scattered. They call that selective absorption.
Okay.
So the clearness of the water absorbs the red, and then the blue comes in, scatters, and turns the clear all blue.
Okay.
Okay, just hold on to that. Because
I'm
the next line I
underlining as we
have.
go along.
So I wrote here, why is that significant? This is why it's significant to me. Jamie's aura started out as red. In theory, my theory, okay, and I hate the theory thing. I like to say thoughts, because I think at this point, theories, everyone's got theories. I hate saying it, but I'm saying it
Agreed.
because it's what it applies here. Okay, we've all got theories. Everybody's had them. Okay, I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's whatever. So his aura started red. Each time Claire is healing him, she's using her blue light power, and he is absorbing Claire's light, the same way that water absorbs sunlight and reflects it blue.
Mm-hmm.
So Jamie's aura, being clear like water, is now ready to absorb Claire's blue light, and as a result, that is changing his aura possibly to blue. This also reflects that there is a merging of their souls happening as his aura is changing. It has changed from red, from which he needed to be red when he was fighting wars, when he was being a warrior, and all the things that he needed to do to ensure his and his family's survival. But it's changing to water each life he cheats, and it becomes water in book 9, so it can fully absorb Claire's blue light, and he can transform into something different. He no longer needs to be a warrior. He's a warrior going out. The red is fading to blue.
Just saying that.
So that's the
Yeah.
first time you've
Get
heard me say
ready
it.
him to go out. The gas.
Okay. Guys, you just heard me tell Jenny that the first time, so let her process. Okay. So we're at book 9. He's clear like water. He goes up on King's Mountain. Okay. And unlike the rest of the times, he doesn't cheat death. He actually dies. And Claire goes up the mountain, and at this point, she fulfills several prophecies by healing him. His 9 lives prophecy, and her white hair, full power prophecy. Now, interestingly, in this moment, Claire uses Roger as an amplifier to resurrect Jamie. But ultimately, it's her using her blue light power that brings him back from the dead, aka resurrecting him. And when she does so, he comes back as something completely different. The red aura has been fully absorbed, and the blue is now the prevalent color. So for me, this is a rebirth and resurrection of Jamie, and the final merging of Jamie and Claire's souls. And this, my friends, now Jenny is so sick of hearing me talk about this. This is where the quantum entanglement enters the chat. We're going to talk about that, I promise. I just want to mention one more thing. The title of book 10, like I said just a few moments ago, is A Blessing for a Warrior Going Out. And we've had a shit ton of thoughts on this. We thought about what it could mean. There's a lot of interesting parallels. But for me, I kind of think the parallel here is that Jamie's red light aura has been extinguished in book 9. That was his red light going out, the warrior going out, like I just said. And to me, it doesn't seem like a coincidence that that's what we have going into book 10. I mean, you can see that parallel, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. This is my last thought on the quantum entanglement, okay? The merging of the souls is what I call it. And we say this every damn episode now. We are not the romantics. But you have to recognize that the story of Jamie and Claire's love is a central theme of the story.
Yes.
And I, not being a romantic, wanted to find a way that I could make it scientific. Okay, so I started reading about physics. And I discovered, like, I made a whole series of videos. I'm not going to give you a 10-page, dissertation on it, but there's this term that comes from quantum physics, and it's called quantum entanglement. And it's basically the concept that two particles or two souls are intertwined over a period of time. And then, even if they're separated by galaxies, by centuries, whatever it is, they can still feel each other and they are still connected. And, like, in our world, we kind of see it with twins. They have this connection.
Mm-hmm.
You can't explain it. We see it in Outlander too with Jemmy and Mandy. They're telepathically connected. They can read each other's thoughts. And I think every time Claire's healing Jamie, they're kind of entangling their souls and they're becoming an example of quantum entanglement. So I think the moment that Claire resurrects him, that's the final thing of them being joined. And I think that it needed to happen so that we could get to what we're going to get to in 10. And I want to hear your thoughts because I know you view that up on the mountain, not in this quantum entanglement and scientific way, but in a different way. But I think it's relevant to them needing to be connected. And we'll get back into why because of book 10 and Jamie's ghost and all of that. But why don't you, I think
I
I think that for you, you said that the resurrection kind of mimics Jesus Christ, even with the fact that there was three of them up on the mountain, right? Am I right?
Okay, so yeah, so I see Jamie as Jesus Christ, and I have to give a shout out to my fifth grade partner in crime, John Solosky. He sat in front of me at St. Anne's School in Jersey City, and he would leave his religion book open so I could peek over his shoulder because I would memorize nothing, and I was so bad in school. So,
The
um,
nuns are proud.
oh my gosh, they're rolling over in their graves. so, so I believe Jamie is the representation of Jesus. It starts as early as book 1 and season 1. We really try to stick to the books here, but since I had watched the show first, um, the pictures are in my mind and they were very telling. So it's in the very first episode where Claire is treating Jamie and they get back to Castle Leoc. He's sitting on a stool and he has a red drape over his shoulder. In any image that we see of Christ, he's usually dressed in a long white gown with a red sash over his shoulder. We also have the image of the lashings across Jamie's back, which also happened to Jesus by the Roman soldiers. I didn't set out to connect the dots with Christianity in the story, but once I began to see them, there's no way it's a coincidence. I think the Battle of King's Mountain was chosen for this storyline because of this specific story in the Bible. About a year before Jesus was taken by the Romans to be crucified, he asked 3 of his closest disciples to come with him to pray on a mountaintop. They were James the Great. Interestingly, that's the saint who Brian Fraser followed the footsteps of during his pilgrimage in Spain, going the way of James, searching for his meaning of life. So I am becoming more convinced Claire is his parallel figure. Although that is in the show Blood of My Blood, since it has to do with something so specific with Brian, I'm thinking that was definitely Diana who put that information in there. You and I talk about this all the time. We are not huge fans of the show because
Yeah.
of the Claire's parents storyline, but I think we can
Yes.
both agree that these snippets that have to do with the Frasers and the Mackenzies are probably heavy Diana written. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think it's even more obvious in the episodes that she wrote and the way that she chooses to drop excerpts from the book that Blood of My
Hmm.
Blood will be based on.
Right.
And I think, just the same as Outlander, she wants her characters and significant parts of her characters to be portrayed correctly.
Yes.
And I don't see the showrunners for Outlander being like, well, let's talk about this pilgrimage or
Right.
let's talk about the Selkies.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
yeah, I
I
agree.
think. All right. So the second apostle was Peter. Peter is known as the rock of the church, who at this point, I think we all see where this is going. It's the representation of Roger. He literally came to Fraser's Ridge, found his calling within his church, and they built a church for him right in the middle of Fraser's Ridge. Now, third, we have John the Beloved. Now, I hope everyone sees the use of the name John here, because John is the English version of Ian. So I believe young Ian is the representation for John the Beloved. He was said to be Jesus's favorite, and I think we can all agree that Ian is Jamie's favorite. When
Mm-hmm.
Jesus asks those three apostles to come to the top of the mountain to pray, it's during this time Jesus reveals his true self to these apostles in what's called the transfiguration of Christ, where he's baptized and changes his form. He becomes illuminated, and they see and understand for the first time that Jesus is the Son of God. I don't think it's a coincidence that Jamie's death takes place on the top of a mountain when his aura changes from red to clear to what we're seeing is blue water. He's transfigured, he's transformed. As Doreen pointed out, his aura changes from red to blue through Claire's healing. While doing research for this episode, one common theme that keeps jumping out at me is that James the Apostle is the first to be martyred. Now, if you remember, I think that's Claire
Yep.
as a parallel figure. I don't know for sure who it's going to be, but I do think we're going to lose one of our favorite characters. I just don't know which one. Like I said, it's James the Apostle. I don't know if they would kill off Claire, but we'll get to that later on. Um, One of the other really interesting things I learned was that there are three different degrees of martyrdom, and this is news to me. Interestingly, the colors are red, blue, and white. Red represents torture or violent death. I see that as the Battle of Culloden. So I think we can all agree that what's that?
Or
Tell me.
Jamie's aura. And it could be his a warrior's light going out. The red
Oh,
light
I
is
like
going
that.
out. And the blue is being illuminated. Illuminated from Claire. Illuminated into Jamie.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. So maybe it's more a figurative title for war. I don't know. Like that's immediately what I thought. Like if the red is going out, maybe it's just that light is going out, but does it mean death? I
No, I don't
don't
think it. We'll circle back. We'll
know.
circle
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Okay.
So red represents torture or violent death, and we know that that was the Battle of Culloden, and I think everyone is of the understanding at this point that Jamie had some sort of death-like experience on the battlefield of Culloden. Okay, so red we've got, white. It can also be seen as green, which I kind of find that interesting, but we'll kind of stick with
Hmm.
the white. Represents someone who lives a life of abstinence of worldly possessions, possibly a life of solitude in the wilderness. Now, if you remember, after Culloden, that pretty much describes how Jamie lived as the Dunbonnet. He lived in solitude, in a cave, no worldly possessions, and we know he only had sex with Mary towards the
Yeah.
end when he was going to prison. So he really did live this life of white martyrdom. So then we have, go ahead.
What about John Quincy Myers?
Oh, listen, I got a whole video on that. When that jumped out at me with John Quincy Myers
But he's living in the wilderness with no possessions.
as well. So look, and when you think about it, so did Ian. Ian went and lived with the Mohawk. He lived in the wilderness. So there, I guess everyone is having their own form of martyrdom at some point.
Yeah.
That's something to think of. That's something to definitely go down a research with.
Okay. And then what about the
Um,
blue?
okay, so the blue involves the denial of desires as though fasting and penitent labor without necessarily implying a journey or complete withdrawal from life. Now, let me read that again. Involves the denial of desires as though fasting. So, like, fasting is a way to, I guess it would be seen as being a martyr, that you're denying yourself happiness.
Like Claire being in her time, not researching Jamie or
I
living
think
as a shell
more.
of herself. Is that where you're going
I
with it?
think no. I think more along the lines of um, not bless you,
Thank you.
not giving yourself enjoyment. Um, let me read this again. Involves the
Oh,
denial of desires, as though fasting and penitence labor without necessarily implying a journey or complete withdrawal of life. So I feel like that's you're just kind of going through life, maybe in solitude.
yeah. We're going to have to, I guess
That's
that
a
could apply
deep
to
one.
Jamie. We got to come back to that one because I need time to
Yeah.
think on that one.
So I feel like I do think that these three colors are the stages of martyrdom that Jamie is going through. Red, the battlefield of Culloden, white being living in
Oh,
solitude for
okay.
years, and then
Blue,
the blue,
which
um,
maybe we just don't know yet and we can't figure it out because that's what's going to be book
right,
10. And maybe it's going to be Claire
exactly.
dying and he's living in solitude and
That's
he's
what
like
I
forsaking.
think.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Oh,
So when I connected that, like him just he's denying himself of desires. That was the big one. So him never being able
oh,
to have sex with Claire again or be one, and then him just living without desire but going through the motions. Um and her being the parallel figure to St. James, who's the first to be martyred. That's where I came to with Claire being the first. So let me finish this, and then I promise you all we'll circle back. Okay. So now of these three apostles, James the apostle goes on to be the first to be martyred, being killed for his belief. So talking about Jesus dying
okay.
on the cross here. Um, he is up there and he looks down at his mother and he looks at um John, the John the beloved, and he says to her to he says to him, take care of, this is your mother. And he looks at Mary and he says, this is your son. So I struggle with who I think is going to die, because Jesus leaves the care of his mother Mary to John the beloved, who would be Ian. So I don't I am so confused over who I think might be killed off. And when I tell you guys, we've recorded this section like 10 times because I get in my own head about who I think is going to die and where I'm going. If I've got the names right, this is a lot of information. So we have Jesus on the cross, Mary and John the beloved at his feet crying. And Jesus says, this is your mother and this is your son. So John the beloved takes care of Mary. So is Mary meant to be Claire in that moment? Is Jamie leaving the care of Claire to Ian, which would mean that they both live and maybe Roger dies. So I am all over the place with who I think is going to die.
Yeah, well, join the club.
So
And as you get more information, the more confusing it gets. So, I
yes.
mean, listen, we talk about this all the like if you guys could ever we call each other, I'll call Jenny on my lunch break like, "Hey, just checking in on you. Just how was your day? How are you feeling?" And 3 hours later, I'm like, "Hey, I got to get back to work because
I
somehow we're
had a
talking
meeting.
about with the resurrection of Jamie." But I like Jenny go back and forth on if it's Claire or Roger that dies. And I have for a long time. And after the latest excerpt from book 10, I started
Yes.
adding Ian into the mix. A lot of my thought process comes from understanding the foreshadowing and the symbolism in the books. So even the titles give us the clue to the big moment or the catalyst of each book. So if we look at 9, okay, here we are, book 9. I got all the tabs to prove it. It's foreshadowed right from the start and in the title, which is why we came to the title of this podcast episode, that Jamie was going to die on King's Mountain. So we start the book. What do we see? John Quincy Myers, he brings Claire the beehive. And Jamie starts telling her about how bees are messengers and they share the news of someone passing on. And then we see it again in the prequel book when Ned is telling the bees about Seamus's passing. Okay, so Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. That book title is someone dying and asking for the
Yes.
bees to carry their memory, aka that's a foreshadowing. So it's Jamie telling Claire, hey, go tell the bees that I am gone. And then we added or resurrected because
Yeah, that's
we
all
see in
you. That was
Frank's,
great.
that was me. That was me. I'll pat myself on the back because I don't have a lot of good thoughts, but that was one of them. But add that in the fact that we've got history, which is a very prevalent subject through the story.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank Randall has Jamie dying in his book. So we know that his death was recorded in history. So at least whatever Frank was able to research. So my guess is someone knew he was dead on the mountain. They went down, they told it to the captains, it got logged, and everybody moves on. And Jamie is dead. But then he's resurrected, and history doesn't know that he was resurrected. Only the
Right.
stories that you hear, just like Jesus, the stories of Jesus in the Bible,
Right.
from people who witnessed it. And we see Jamie has definitely been resurrected. He smells different. He all of a sudden can hear the buzzing of bees. There's a lot of things that go on, okay? And that also is foreshadowed because we talked about this, and this is I think where you built your whole theory about John Quincy Myers.
John.
In the beginning of the book when he gives Claire the beehive, he tells her we have to give them a blessing. And
Yep.
the blessing that he gives, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's on book page. What page is it on so that you guys can read it? I don't
I
know.
feel
And
like it's
now
fairly
I can't.
early on.
It is, and I can't find it. But basically, the entire thing is word for word a foreshadowing to Jamie dying up on that mountain. And that's where you started building your theory about John the Baptist, right? I mean, I
Absolutely.
think.
So the thing with John the Baptist is he is literally called a messenger. John Quincy brings them the mail. I know that that's super simplified, but that was
No,
that. God,
he also brings them the bees, which are the
yeah,
messengers.
yes. So when he brought them the bees, Doreen and I were on the phone, and what was the beginning? I don't even remember the beginning of the conversation. You had just finished a video, I think, of something.
Yeah, and you said, oh, that excerpt that you shared, because I was talking about the resurrection and how I thought it was foreshadowed in the blessing when John Quincy
Yes.
Myers was there. And you're like, this just like spurred a train of thought with John Quincy Myers. I'm going to kind of look into this. And then that went on to your just,
Yeah, so
holy
so
cow.
again,
And then,
parallel figure would be John the Baptist. John the Baptist lives in the wilderness in isolation, and he lives on honey. So we have John Quincy Myers, who's a messenger, brings the mail, who delivers a beehive. And during this conversation with Claire about the beehive, they talk about John the Baptist right in there. I didn't know that
yep.
while I was making this theory, and I went back in. I'm like, oh my God, it's right there. So yeah, I like, and then I posted. So I think I just said this a little earlier. I have a video about this. I will post it because it's got some really good information in it that I can't like bring to mind
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. Once I posted it, I'm like, oh my God, maybe I got it wrong with Ian. Ian also lives in the wilderness. Oh no, oh no. And then that's when I started to put together the pieces that he is John the Beloved. And I was like, oh my God, this is all becoming so
It
crystal
all
clear now.
connects.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
there's, and go ahead.
in that same conversation, we get so excited. We're like, wait. This is our phone conversations too, just so you guys know. Welcome. But in that same conversation, I remember because we were talking about, okay, Jamie's been resurrected. He comes back. Who's the warrior? Who's the blessing for? Because we know we see the blessing through all of the books at different stages.
Yes,
And
yes.
I started talking about the shape of the books. So,
Hmm.
and what they mean and how they predict the story. And we're going to have to do a whole separate video about the shape of book 10. I already have a video on it, but I really want to delve into it. But you brought up the number 10 and how we
Hmm.
have to look at the number of the books and create that connection.
Yep.
And do you remember what you said? Because I have it written down if you don't.
It's if I miss something, let me know. It's completeness, order, and a new beginning, like almost a new chapter of something. So like
This
end of book 9 would be the end of it, and then where Jamie dies and then is
mhm
resurrected, and 10 symbolizes this new era. What do you have written down there?
mhm I put it represents the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new
Mm-hmm.
one. And
That's
then
what it was. Yes.
just like the Mobius.
Oh, that's right. I did say that. I'm so excited. Every now and then, I'm like, that was really good.
I
Yes.
mean, it's
Yes.
listen. That's the thing. This shit is so crazy to talk about. But so I started thinking, okay, if we're applying our logic, which I guess we could call it that, it's our own logic. It makes sense to us, and the foreshadowing throughout the books. We factor in the number 10, which is what you just said, and we take what we know about the shape of book 10, which is that
Mm-hmm.
it's a hurricane from above, strands of Jamie and Claire's DNA on the outskirts,
Mm-hmm.
and then Jamie and Claire are the eye, the center. And if we apply all of that, along with what you just said about the number 10
Mm-hmm.
again, who who do you think, and we're circling back to this, is the warrior that's going out? Like, is it just a parallel to Jamie's red light aura being extinguished and going out, or is someone actually going to die? I got three.
I think you saying like it could just be the extinguishing of the red, I think that's really very cool. Let me quick say before you tell me who you think yours are. This is what I have written in the previous thing
Okay.
that I didn't get to. Like I said, guys, we have papers. I have, Unabomber notes going on. So it's hard to stay on track, especially when we start she says something that triggers and then we lose our place. So when
Hmm.
I was going down this with the three apostles, I have the notes here about Jesus leaving the care of Mary to James the beloved or John the beloved. Those names, I keep
Okay.
getting them screwed up. So I started to think about the transfiguration and who the people were. I start to think that James is the representation of Claire, and that Jamie in his blue aura lives a life in his blue aura. And then I wrote, like, these are just notes
Solitude.
to myself. I'm actually firm on this. I think this is how the story is going to go. I think that it's Claire that's going to die. And I forgot, I totally wrote this down here. So I think the story is going to I'm wondering if Diana made these connections confusing on purpose, meaning if we were to figure out who the characters represented but couldn't pinpoint who was going to die. So I do think it's going to be Claire, and Jamie is going to live a life of solitude until he passes. What do you think?
Oh my god.
This
Okay. See, here's
is
the
sad to
thing.
talk about.
I don't think it's sad. I don't think it's sad if Claire dies. I think it's kind of beautiful. Okay, but here
Oh.
I am gonna get so much heat from that. Let me just read what I wrote so I can get I have three. I have three people that I think are gonna die.
Okay.
Okay. First up is Claire. And I think this is what I wrote because her and Jamie's souls are completely merged after King's Mountain. And if the quantum entanglement theory does exist, they will stay connected even in death. And she's
Okay.
fulfilled her purpose. Her purpose was resurrecting Jamie, saving his life endless times, fulfilling the prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always have this vision of my head of her dying, him burying her at the stones, planting the forget me nots, and just sitting there waiting and hoping for her to travel one more time. So, in that concept, right, if Claire's the warrior, her battle was saving Jamie and resurrecting him. And the warrior isn't meant to be literal in the sense that she's going to war, but that she's supposed to save Jamie. And once she does, Jamie's absorbed her blue light and her light goes out. And
Look, I if
that's
is
my
is
first
she
possibility.
your is she your top pick,
No.
Like if you had to put your three people in order, she's not your top pick.
My top pick is Roger.
Okay.
Okay, you want to know
We're
why?
all
Okay,
we're
I'll tell you why.
Yeah. Go ahead. Tell
It
me
goes,
why.
it goes back. Let me tell you, my first goes back and forth between Roger and Claire. It has been Claire
Hmm.
for probably 5 years. And very
Okay.
recently, I very recently, within the last 6 months, I started really thinking about Roger. And it's because, and I've said this before, and I think people think I'm crazy when I say it, but I think that he had to go back in time and develop the church and that connection to religion and not be a professor in their time.
Hmm.
And he thrives in the past because he becomes a shepherd. And his role is to shepherd all of them into the space between as they die. And in order
Hmm.
to do so, he has to be there first.
Okay.
And I know that's something I have to expand on so much greater, but we don't have the time to do it here
Do
in this
another
episode.
episode.
Um, and then probably in the last 3 weeks, I started adding Ian to the mix. Simply because it seems like it's kind of foreshadowed. When Diana just released that latest excerpt and it had
Hmm.
the snake symbolism and it just was talking about a lot of different things, I started thinking to myself, you know, Ian is he has really developed into a warrior. What was the
Yep.
point of Ian being the one to be with Jamie out of all the nieces and the nephews and the kids and
Right.
Jamie's kids and William? And why is Ian the one that went to be with the Mohawk? Why is he the one that became a warrior? Besides Jamie, he's really the only one who's as skilled as Jamie in that family.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
okay, I can't really get into this either, but like we've talked before about the 7 generations prophecy that the natives believe about like restoring the earth and like each
Right.
generation like serves a purpose. And I think like a lot could be said about Ian's purpose being, yes, to help, save Jamie, but also more like keep his generation going, like with Todus, who is his son, and then that leading
Right.
to the 7 generations, especially like where they're at in North Carolina. But I digress. I can't get into all that.
Another episode.
So I mean, I don't know. It depends on the day. And when I start factoring in Jamie's ghost, then I heavily lean back into it being Claire.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
I again with the parallel of her being James, and he is the first one to be martyred.
Yeah.
That along with I don't know the different types of martyrdom. To me, everything fell into place from that. And like I said, I forgot I actually wrote that I was pretty firm on that. So my
Yeah.
order would be Claire, Roger, then Ian. Now Ian, in that excerpt, he falls and he gets a compound fracture. So if you don't know what a compound fracture is, it's where the bone literally breaks through the skin. So it's broken in half, and I think it's his leg, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yeah.
it goes
It's
through
his
the
leg.
skin. So the it's not an enclosed fracture, so the infection that can come from this could actually kill him. So that is why it's a strong possibility it could be him. But my order would be Claire, Roger, Ian. Yours would be what?
See, I don't know because again, it goes back and forth because I've always thought it was Claire because I think that her purpose, since this is Jamie's story, is to save
Right.
him so that he
So
can
here.
fulfill and I just think that the showing them as examples of quantum entanglement, they're meant to be separated because that's the
Right.
whole point of quantum entanglement. They get separated but they're still connected.
Good.
And I mean, I start factoring in the Mobius, and that's where Jamie's ghost comes in. So everyone who's not familiar, my thoughts on this is Jamie dies at the battlefield of Culloden. He goes to the space between, and at that time he's astral projecting and he's seeing
Mm-hmm.
Claire. And I don't know how to get into it without a 45-minute deep dive, but I think in that moment it's where the Mobius is crossing and they're hopping onto the other side, which you could refer to as
Mm-hmm.
a parallel timeline or a crossing point, and that's when the timeline starts again or starts over
Right.
or creates the new parallel. And that has to happen. And that leads me again back to, okay, there has to be another, because when you go into the Mobius, I don't have an example of it here, but it's basically the concept of you start here, you go like this, no matter which way you go, you're always going to end up. And if you
Right.
think of the Mobius as Claire, as Jamie's story, because we know this is Jamie's story, and Claire intersects at two points on the Mobius, then she has to
Mm-hmm.
keep Jamie in the same path that he starts where he is and he ends where he is. So the two paths in theory would be when he dies on Culloden and he goes to, his ghost goes to her and she travels, because you can argue
Okay.
that ghost being seen by Frank is why she travels, because it brings up a
Right.
conversation, and they then another deep dive another day. But then you would say the other twist in the Mobius would be when he's resurrected, and then he's
Right.
on the Claire steering him back to the path that he needs to be on, and her purpose is fulfilled. That's
Okay.
it. Her
Because that
purpose
really
is
was the
Jamie.
question. The question I came up with this, and it's exactly what we're talking about, is what is the point? So we know that they didn't change the outcome of Culloden. We know that there was no change of the way the Revolutionary War went. We know that little things happened. Somebody who may not have died, she healed, and maybe they went on to live until they were
Yeah.
20 instead of 10. So, do you think in book 10, we will get an aha moment of what the point is? Or is the point just Jamie's story? And I don't mean just Jamie's story, but
Okay.
like,
I don't know how to answer this without sounding condescending, because I don't want it to be. I really don't. And I
okay,
don't think I'm
no, I
smarter
do.
than anyone else at all. I just think everybody interprets things differently and on different
That's
levels.
exactly it.
I think
Yes,
that's
agreed.
I think some people read Outlander and it's a love story about Jamie and Claire, and that is so beautiful. And it is a love story, and it's a beautiful love story.
Yes.
I think some people pull it apart and analyze it and relate it to their lives. And then there's people like us who we are obsessed with finding the themes and the consistencies and the
Yes.
hidden messages. So I think for me, when I'm reading it, there is going to be an aha moment where I'm going to say, this is the point of this story. And I do
That's what I
think,
hope for.
at a larger scale, the point of the story is Jamie. We know Diana has
Mm-hmm.
said in countless interviews, it's the story of Jamie. And it's because Jamie is the pivotal character because he has a bigger role to play. And we talked about everyone has a piece in that. So if in theory Frank's role is to get Claire there, and to leave all these pieces and these messages and these prophecies for them as clues, because he knows the bigger story. I don't know yet. We don't know enough about that. That's your theory.
But we're
And it's
starting to
brilliant.
connect some dots.
Right.
Yeah, we're
But
starting to connect some
in
dots
that
with him that he knew more. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, but in that train of thought, everybody's role would be Jamie. And then if you
Mm-hmm.
start breaking down every character, you can do it. You can show how each one of them was pivotal to saving Jamie. And that's an
Mm-hmm.
episode you and I just talked about we're going to do. So that's coming. And I don't like to say that because I don't want anybody to know what's coming. We like to surprise, but we're going to trust. But I mean, I don't know. So I think we've been yammering for an
I hope that
hour
we
and
get,
15 minutes. So,
say, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. Is that where we're at?
yeah, yeah.
We
So
could do
I guess
2 hour
here's the biggest
episodes
thing.
like that one person. What's up?
Someone did say that they would listen to us rant for 3 hours. So be careful what you wish for.
Oh my God.
But I think,
Yes.
I guess in the way to wrap this up is a question. Okay. And it circles back to, we named this title of this episode, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone, or Resurrected, with a big question mark.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question for each of us, which we know the answer, and all of our listeners, is, have we convinced you that Jamie was resurrected and that he
I
now
hope so.
has a blue aura? Do you think we did?
Yeah. And what do you think? And think about the different levels of martyrdom. Is he currently in one? Is he going to get to the last one? Did he live in the first one? Like, it really, red, white, blue, it is all crazy. I do hope at the end of book 10 that we get this aha moment. That's my personal wish,
Yeah.
that there is a point. I don't know what that point's going to be, but I hope it's there. So today was fun
And I
though, and I hope,
No, I hope that everybody gets something out of it. If people,
yes.
because I go back to saying again, I don't want to sound condescending. If people love the love story, how can you not? It's one of the most
Mm-hmm.
beautiful love stories ever told. And I'm talking about
Right.
quantum entanglement, which that is the most beautiful concept. I hope everybody gets that from the book. From whatever angle they love this story, they get that resolution and they get that aha. My aha moment is going to be interviewing Diana, and hopefully she answers something. I
I
don't know.
can't wait. I cannot wait. And you don't have
I
a date
can't
yet,
wait.
right?
Not yet, but
You
we're
don't have a
working on
date
it.
for
We're
this
working
yet?
on it. So,
Okay. Good, good,
not
good.
yet.
All right.
Nope.
Well,
All
I
right.
hope
Well,
this all
thank
made
you guys
sense
so
to
much.
everybody. We
Yes.
were all over the place
Oh
today,
my
but
gosh.
I hope you understand how excited we are when we find this information. And I feel like because we're talking more openly about the later books, you know, we've been kind of harping on the show a lot in the last, couple years on TikTok, and this is what's happened. And now we're really going headfirst into the later books. And I hope you guys enjoy it as much as Doreen and I do, because this is where we live, people. This is where we live. So
Except mine's annotated. Jenny's.
mine, there's here.
Yeah, but you know what?
Go
That
ahead.
just shows how much smarter than me you are, because yours is in your brain,
Yeah,
and mine
right.
has to be written
No,
down.
yeah, no, I have little notes. Yeah. I got to reread what I highlighted here. I'll stick a note. I'll stick a marker in there. This week it's not a dirty sock though, so you're lucky.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up for this week. But as always, thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it. And until next time, stay Outlander unhinged.